OR Media present Audio Articles, Culture Corner series. On Voluspa by Redwald OR. Our culture, in the form of the written word, has been subject to various negative influences. It is up to us to ascertain the real meaning of ancient writings and use the instincts residing deep within our hearts to separate the meaningful from the meaningless. The majority of our myths were written down by Christian scribes and were taken from stories passed down by word of mouth in Icelandic tongue. There are exceptions, of course, such as the Greek Hyperborean myth, but as a very general notion this appears to be the case. The main body of work detailing the stories of our gods are to be found in the Eddas, which, as Wikipedia notes, contain material reaching into the Viking Age. I have a number of issues with our written myths. Firstly, I believe we must be exceptionally cautious regarding who wrote them and whether they omitted things of deeper spiritual importance. Secondly, they were written down in an age where materialism amongst non-Christians, notably the Vikings, was rife, and it could be argued that the deeper aspects of what we now call Odinism were being acknowledged less than a desire for gold and personal status. And so, a Viking interpretation of our ancient myths, put to us via Christian scribes, will certainly satisfy the practitioner of pagan ways who likes to drink, feast and get rich, but will not satisfy the spirit of one who wishes to bring about a spiritual new awakening of Hyperborean essence. We use the term Odinist for a reason. That reason is in part to self-segregate us from an ever-growing crowd of people who like to categorize themselves as an imitation of something they've seen in a historical fiction-based television series. And so, when it comes to discussing one of our myths, it is of immense importance that we see the wood for the trees. My most significant issue with all translations of Voluspa is the general insistence in regarding the quoted sons of Heimdall as humanity. All people living on planet Earth have their own creation myths pertaining to their own folk. Voluspa is ours. The sons of Heimdall are our folk. The myths and legends of other folk should be respected, as should ours. My personal connection to Odinism, and this is something I felt since my earliest days, comes from a gut feeling, an instinct, a connection to my land, my folk, and the place names and landscapes I'm surrounded by. And despite my fascination with Voluspa, I must confess that reading the myths have never been the be-all and end-all on my list of essential, spiritually fulfilling activities. Some Odinists, and seemingly all of Asatru, would question this. For many, study of written works is paramount. But if one casts an eye across the modern world, we will see that while many religions offer many things to many people, a blinkered study of law and doctrine has certainly caused many problems. For me, the folk spirit should be the driving force towards a new awakening. Literature forms a part of this awakening, but the law should be digested by the gut, by the heart, and by the blood. However, there are, I believe, at least a handful of tales passed down to us via the written word that do potentially hold enough information for them to be worthy of deeper study. This belief comes from a gut feeling based on my own current personal stage of spiritual advancement, but I must add that I feel strongly that a contemporary work written by a spiritually advanced man or woman of our time is worth as much, if not more, than an ancient text. Properly trained and sufficiently practiced, we are antennae for divine inspiration. This should be remembered at all times, and it is why the spiritually advanced Odinist will always be one step ahead of the purely scientifically minded scholar, and it is also the reason why the divine inspired artist will always beat the atheist physicist to new ideas, even if it is down to the physicist to actually complete the physical aspects of the technically advanced plan. With the above in mind, I ask the reader to tentatively cast an eye across the words contained in Voluspa, which is perhaps the most mystical of all our myths. There is an ethereal quality to it, and the subtitle immediately reveals a great gem of wisdom, a biological fact, and a big lift for modern women who feel disenfranchised in a world that often places them in second place. The subtitle is, of course, the Sibyl's Prophecy. In Voluspa, Odin plays second fiddle to she who speaks, and those who are able to recognise it, this male-female drama is exactly the formula needed for creation, which is why our religion is nature's true way, and will ultimately prevail over the unbalanced monotheistic view. When Odin searches for wisdom, the Sibyl offers answers, speaking as the record of time, remembering 9 former world trees, and immediately showing that all which once was shall again come to pass. This notion offers great hope for those who feel under pressure from the ever-consuming wolf, yet paradoxically there is sadness when one realizes that all great glories are destined to come undone. The spiritual Odinist may consider this Sibyl as the divine intelligence which pervades all things. Is she consciousness? Is Odin acting as an antenna for her? What is Odin before he receives this illumination? Does the pre-illuminated Odin represent us? Does it offer us a path to divinity? These floods of questions come quickly, and barely has Voluspa begun must we consider just what great work this must originally have been. Visions of drunken men listening and laughing to a travelling poet's tall tales make way for a new vision of a sombre storyteller regaling attentive and in-tune folk with Voluspa's cosmic revelations. Tastes must have been very highbrow indeed, and attention spans long. In her introduction to Voluspa, Elsa Britta Tichenel states that Voluspa uses a poetic ploy to suggest that consciousness enters worlds of matter in order to learn, grow, and evolve greater understanding, while inspiring by association the matter through which it operates. This conjures bizarre images of 2 alien beings meeting and attempting to understand something which is exceptionally different. In fact, our folk could be considered as the marriage between matter and what some prefer to refer to as the astral body, or a body of light which resides within and which upon death leaves the body. This male-female connection between Odin and the Sibyl could signify the beginning of our folk. It explains the important moment in pre-time when consciousness enters matter. Biologists such as Richard Dawkins are excellent at explaining organic matter, but they have no comprehension of consciousness, and consciousness must be considered by every Odinist. Just what is this unquantifiable thing which cannot be seen, touched, or measured, but which is fundamentally the most important thing in the universe? In his book The Secret Way, Paul Brunton, the pen name of Western spiritualist Raphael Hirst, advocated a method of meditation where the practitioner cleared his or her mind and simply asked, "Who am I?" Who is the practitioner asking? Oneself or something else? Thus begins the quest for Odin consciousness. Readers or listeners will have now noticed that I am not reviewing the text of Voluspa line by line. This to me goes against all that I am trying to explain and convey. Things must be taken as a whole, just as a chemical extraction of a plant may not offer the health benefits of the complete plant. Thus the modern Odinist of the Odinic rite must be warned against an intrinsic examination of individual words and stanzas from our myths. Consider those who dedicate their lives to the study of religious texts and the terrible things that result from such activities. Sects, divisions, and splits erupt from those who veer one way and those who veer another. The complete Odinist should aim to absorb his or her reading much as one does with a beautiful painting or vista. It is this method that will create well-rounded individuals with strong spiritual purpose. Back to Voluspa, and in continued conversation with Odin, the seeress goes on to discuss future happenings such as the death of Balder and Ragnarok. Considering she can also remember time long past, remember giants born in the foretime, and 9 worlds I remember, it is clear that our cosmic narrator is explaining to the Allfather that all things come in cycles. This is, of course, one of the most important aspects of Odinism, what some might call the turning of the wheel. We see it in microcosm in the seasons, and we comprehend it in the macrocosm when we consider the fact that there have been worlds before ours, and there will certainly be new worlds to come. There will have been many deaths of Balder, and many Ragnaroks, both large and small. Perhaps we might consider the words of our mystic Sibyl as that of a wise one who has seen it all, done it all, and rather than actually being able to see the future, she can simply predict the future due to the wisdom she has built up over an eternity of observation. This offers us a lesson. If Odin, a god, is humble enough to seek wisdom from another being, then we, as members of the Odinic rite, should continuously have our eyes and ears open to learning. Whether an apprentice member, a professed Odinist, an ordained Gothi, or CG member, there is always wisdom to be gleaned from others and also from events. We know Sunna will rise and set, but we shouldn't close our minds to the idea that one day she will rise for her final time upon this world. This reality is also a metaphor we must reflect on daily. Towards the end of the first third of Voluspa, the seeress refers to the Norns. These 3, also perceived as women in many, many literary and legendary guises, are some of the least understood yet widely known and accepted characters in European civilization. In complete opposition to alien religions, these 3 hold sway over both men and gods alike. It is in our blood to accept this, yet theological perversions from the East have clouded the minds of our folk. In Voluspa, there is information that deep down we know to be true. And not from mud were our folk created, as according to Voluspa we arose from the noble tree, upreaching, with roots buried deep into the soil. Odin gave these trees spirit, Hona discernment, and Lodur blood, and divine light. Here in plain speak do we find that within our blood is divinity, and it must be understood for those who hold in high regard the era that gave us the Vikings, that this era also gave us the folk who lost sight of our eternal, internal divinity. That we perhaps arose from plant life might be something Richard Dawkins could agree with, but did consciousness evolve, or was it given to us as a gift? In Voluspa, we can read that it was certainly the latter. when science can explain consciousness, Odinists will be greatly interested. Deeper myths, like Voluspa, should be placed above the more simple Eddic tales. In our present age, we are in danger of glorifying a tiny segment of our heritage. We look back via film and television at the action, adventure and high drama of a bygone age, and only see a caricature of a particular flame-bearded god. We see strength and muscle, drinking prowess and adventure, but we miss the spiritual aspects that comprise the bedrock foundation for all heroism. Today is the day of muscle without spirit, of strength without heart, of adventure without honour. We are devolving spiritually. The mighty oak can be felled, as can the strong man without spirit. But the spiritual man, when he falls, leaves behind a divine light. These are the deeper teachings of Voluspa, and they are available to all as clear as day. The fate of our folk and the fate of this world, the next world, and all previous worlds are perhaps best encapsulated in Balder. He is the one who most spectacularly displays the Odinist outlook regarding the eternal return, and I believe that in the most devious and twisted manner possible it was a perversion of Balder who ultimately swayed our folk into falling under the spell of Christianity, with the tale of Jesus and all those references to the sun, the light, and the solstice timing of his birth, which this encapsulated. Our folk would never have grown accustomed to the worship of the jealous Jehovah otherwise. In Voluspa, Balder is referenced as the gentle god, and from this one might deduce that he was the most spiritually advanced of all the gods. In this wolf age, it is deep spirituality we most desperately need to kindle. The beauty and strength of Odinism is its completeness. Voluspa offers us a tiny glimpse into the origins of our faith, but with greater understanding we see the many layers of what it has to offer: physical might, spiritual strength, weird, folkish divinity, and the never-ending cycle of return. Voluspa was not the beginning, nor the end. We shall rise again. Baldur, hail! You've been listening to an OR Media audio presentation.